Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. We're very happy to have you all here. This is a really big election year, especially for Cherokee County, as we have multiple primaries happening this year. But until these primaries happen, our focus is going to be on contacting our federal and state legislators. Starting next week, the Georgia legislature will be in session for the next 40 days. We anticipate some proposed bills that will around voting access, and we want to make sure that we are contacting every day, if we can, to all of our legislators and letting them know that we cannot allow voter suppression in our state. We'll also be posting all of these information and calls to action on social media, so please keep a lookout for that, because we do want to make sure that Georgia stays accessible for voting and that they do not take that away from anyone in our state. We'll also be focusing on training volunteers for voter turnout, for voter registration and candidate recruitment. So please keep an eye out for all of that, because we want to get as many Cherokee Democrats out as possible in each of these elections this year, and we want to make sure that everyone who gets out is allowed to vote. That is all. Thank you for being here.
Maggie, where are you? You want to say something? Yeah, Maggie. We have something else to add with announcements as well.
Thank you, Joella. Good morning. I just have a quick announcement. As some of you may know, we have a wonderful candidate who will be running in House Seat 44, and her name is Danielle Bell. Raise your hand if you know Danielle. And she's fabulous, and she is hosting a meet and greet, and I'm helping her get it set up, and it will be Friday, the 16th of January, so coming up a week from next Friday. And we would love to see as many people as we can there, although it is a house party, so we will be somewhat limited. But if you would like an invitation for that to learn more about Danielle, or if you already know her and you just want to come and support her, please just grab me afterwards. I'll hang around a little bit. I'll take your information and send you an invitation probably within a week or so. So thank you so much.
Hi. So today we have 4 candidates that are speaking. The first 2 are running for CD11, Ken Kolsak and Barry Wolfart. Each of the candidates will speak for 20 minutes. And then after they both have spoken, then we'll have 20 minutes for question and answer to ask either one of them. 20 minutes for question and answer. After they speak, then Scott Sanders, who is running for HD 23, will speak. He will have 20 minutes as well, and then we'll have 10 minutes after for questions and answers for him. And then we do have another candidate that will speaking at the end of that as well, too. So, Ken, you're up first.
How's everyone doing this morning? I gotta try and remember to hold this microphone away from me a little bit. We might want to turn the volume down because I can get loud. But yes, my name is Ken Korsak. Recently got the paperwork together in the last month, got my website up this week. I'm active on ActBlue, and I got a Facebook page, and we're gonna grow that as we come. I am a resident of CD11 since 2021 when I moved up from Florida, and I'm currently a special ed teacher at Etowah High School. So, what I wanted to talk about this morning was something that happened on October 30th. On October 30th, Amazon announced its Q3 earnings report, and they showed a 13% year-over-year growth on income. They showed a $21.2 billion income for that quarter. October 28th, they cut 14,000 jobs. It is not the 1% that the Republicans claim are the ones taking the jobs. It is not the immigrants, it is not the refugees, it is not the trans people, it is the corporate oligarchs. Anything to make a buck. So we need to make sure that we put the workers forward, put the middle class regrowth forward. But unfortunately, I can't get into those things because I woke up this morning and we bombed Venezuela. We bombed Venezuela. We went ahead and we took Maduro and his wife into custody. without congressional approval. And unfortunately, he didn't need congressional approval, which is something that needs to be addressed. In 2001, Congress gave the president authorized use of military force. The president has authority to take action to deter and prevent acts of international terrorism against the U.S. That is what the AUMF stands for. That is what Trump is using. He claimed Maduro was funneling drugs. He's a narco-terrorist. No proof that any fentanyl is made in Venezuela. Unfortunately, this is not the only thing that needs to be amended. In the 70s, we had the War Power Resolution as a response to Vietnam. In the War Power Resolution, the president can institute military action and notify Congress within 48 hours, and they have to stop after 60 days without congressional approval. It's a pretty big window for the largest military in the world to go in and do what they want and get out. No one person in the United States should have that much power. Especially, but why are we looking at Venezuela? It's not narco-terrorism. It's oil. We've already illegally taken 2 Venezuelan oil tankers. It's not the first time the United States has done this. In the 90s, 90, 91, I was in 8th grade. I was in the Super Bowl 25 halftime show. What was going on during that time? The Gulf War. Oil. Kuwait was found guilty of illegally drilling diagonally into Iraq's oil reserves, pulling oil out of Iraq, flooding the market, and putting Iraq in an economic disadvantage. The UN gave approval to Saddam Hussein to go into Kuwait. George H.W. Bush gave approval for Saddam to go into Kuwait. Saddam did that. Right after that, President Bush met with Margaret Thatcher in Colorado, turned around and said, Saddam's a madman. We have to get him out of Kuwait. Why? The UK had oil interests in Kuwait. Every major incident is around a natural resource. That wasn't Bush's only action. Panama. Bush used the 70s War Power Resolution to go into Panama. The United States wanted control of the Suez Canal again. Not the Suez Canal, the Panama Canal. Different continent, sorry. They wanted control of that again. The United States used to have oil rights in Venezuela. When Maduro came to power, he nationalized the oil industry and kicked US companies out. They wanted to keep Venezuelan oil profits in Venezuela. Who can fault them? If we're making something, we want the money for that, don't we? I promised I would keep it less than 20 because Scott is more important today. But we have a history in this country, a very warlike history. Reagan went into Nicaragua. He wanted an easy target because the US didn't want war after Vietnam. Bush went into Nicaragua, not Nicaragua, Reagan, Nicaragua, Bush, Panama. Couple hours of prep, this is what it does to you when you wake up and find something. But it's the same pattern. We've seen what they're trying to do with the regime change. Now, yes, the election is disputed. The information that we've received from the Venezuelan election shows that Maduro lost. He then issued an arrest warrant on his political rival. Where have we seen that before? Trump is doing the same playbook, but now he's doing it to benefit himself. He's doing it to benefit US rights or interest in oil rights. So those are things that need to be addressed. I would love to stand up here and talk about raising the minimum wage, giving workers protection and rights, giving everyone free universal health care. But today, just the tone changed when I woke up this morning and opened up Instagram. And first story, US bombs Venezuela, Congress knows nothing about it. This was a unilateral act and we can't allow that. They didn't even claim that. They claim that against Iran. They're not claiming that here. Well, Iraq, but Trump was claiming Iran was building up its nuclear arsenal, and Trump is the reason why Iran was building up its nuclear arsenal, because Trump got rid of Obama's deal with Iran. So, but what we need to address now is revisiting, taking away the authorized for use of military force. We need to go and revisit the War Powers Resolution and put tighter restraints on a single person using military action against a foreign agent. The way forward in globalization is commerce. China kicked our ass this year because everyone we used to have a deal with made a deal with them. Unfortunately, I can't be all rabble-rousing and go, but these are dark times, and we need someone that's going to say what's going on. We need someone that's going to fight to take those powers away from the executive branch. One person should not be able to do that. No. In 15 years, Loudermilk's done nothing. He's introduced 8 pieces of legislation. None of them have passed. None of them had to do with the people of Georgia. He doesn't care about America as a whole. He doesn't care about the people that voted for him. He cares about the people in the cybersecurity industry that he came from. I'm one of the Americans living paycheck to paycheck. I am one of the Americans that see how the education system is failing. Those are things that need to be addressed. Unfortunately, the position I'm running for cannot just deal with domestic issues. So I'm here today to tell you that those are things that I'm going to do. We need to remove the authorized use of military force. We need to put tighter constraints on the War Power Resolution. If someone attacks us, then by all means, no one attacked us. We did it anyway. We did it for greed. And greed is the thing that we need to take a stand against. Whether it be political greed of old people holding on to power, whether it be financial greed of the corporate oligarchs sacrificing American workers for a profit, we need someone that's going to go in there and take a stand. And that's all I have prepared for today. So I want to make sure that Scott has plenty of time because I know we got Q&A after Barry. So. Oh, I will do the introductions. The young, handsome gentleman coming down the aisle, Mr. Barry Wolfert. Wolfert.
Thank you. Thank you, Ken. I feel like we're auditioning for like The Price is Right or something. Good morning, everybody. What's that? Come on down, right? Spin the wheel. Can you hear me okay? Okay. Can you hear me back there okay? Well, good morning, everybody. Happy New Year. It's 2026. Clock has started, right? My name is Barry Wolfert, not Barry Loudermilk, Barry Wolfert. The only thing we have in common is our mothers like that name. And I'm running to be your next congressman in the 11th district. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my story and why I'm doing this and share some things with you. So I've lived in Cobb County for over 30 years. I raised my family here. I started my business here. I pay my taxes here. And hopefully one day I'm going to get to retire here, okay? I'm a small business owner. I'm self-employed. I'm self-insured. I'm a real estate agent, okay? I drive all over these roads, 75, 575, 400, 285. And I live with the same pressures and the same concerns that all of you do. Every day I wake up with concerns about rising health care costs. Just saw my debit card get hit this morning with a nice premium. The uncertainty of retirement. Can we? Will we? And what's it going to look like? The rising cost of housing, right? Affordability. Do you know that the average age to now for a first-time home buyer is 40 years old? 40 years old. I can't imagine that when I graduated from college, somebody would say to me, congratulations, in 18 years you'll be able to afford a home, right? The daily cost of living. I will say that gas is pretty good right now. Drive around a lot. Use that. But the overall daily cost of living, whether it's groceries, utilities, your general kids' activities, or just your social life, is very expensive. And there's a great uncertainty about our economic future. Is this going to continue? What pulled me into this race, what got me off the couch, was I'm going to turn 60 this year. And I've been planning for quite a while to retire at some point in my 60s, 7, 8 years from now. And when the One Big Beautiful Disaster Bill passed on July 4th, there were some aspects of that bill that really struck home to me. The first one being the letting the ACA subsidies expire, the expanded subsidies. We can talk about that. That affected me. Until they had expanded it, I never had a subsidy. I've been on the ACA since it was founded, 2011 I think it was? Before that, that was a wild, wild west of trying to get insurance. Calling brokers, who do you got, who do you represent, Cigna, United Healthcare, whoever it was in the game at the time. The ACA has been a blessing for a lot of reasons. It's not the solution, but it is a bridge. And we don't blow up bridges with people on them, except for maybe this morning. So healthcare was a big part of that, and I started to look at my numbers. And then I saw that with the tax breaks and the way the taxes had been adjusted, we're going to have an insolvency problem in Social Security in about 7 or 8 years, which that number kind of lines up for me because I was going to retire in 7 or 8 years. So I'm paying double for my health insurance, which means I can't save that money in my retirement plan. But when I get to retirement age, I'm only going to get 75% of what I was supposed to pay in. The goalposts are being moved as we're running the ball down the field, right? That got me off the couch. What am I going to do about this? I don't know. Portugal seems like a nice place to live. But I don't speak Portuguese, so that was a big problem for me. My kids are here, my family's here, my business is here, okay? So my choice was either do nothing or do something. So I started looking into doing something. And I came to a Cherokee Democrats boot camp and was blown away by that. I was like, whoa. And that was just for state stuff. I'm like, I'm running federal office. They're like, oh, you sit in the back. But I started doing my research, and I started meeting with people, and I started coming to these meetings. And slowly my meter went from, are you crazy, to how crazy are you, to you are that crazy. I just signed the paperwork. And so my campaign, thank you. I'm 7, 8 weeks into the campaign. We launched officially on November 14th. And I've been very excited about the response to it. Coming back to this, I know what it feels like to work for 40 years, pay your taxes, play by the rules, and feel like the system is still leaving me behind. Does anybody feel that way? So my campaign is about bringing a new vision, a new perspective to this seat. I want to bring citizen-led servant leadership. We need to remember who we work for, right? The Founding Fathers wanted citizens to be their elected officials for a period of time, representing farmers and blacksmiths and smiths and tradesmen and whatever there was at the time, right? And be elected by their local people, go form a government, help them, and then go back to their jobs. Right? Not become career politicians, not have all this money in there. I don't know what the first PAC was. Maybe it was, Pocahontas ran a PAC. I don't know, at Jamestown. But my campaign is about bringing a new vision, a new perspective to this seat. I'm not interested in doing this for a third career. I would like to retire at some point, right? I'm doing this because these issues affect me. And I know that if I'm struggling, there are people that are not as well off as I am that are struggling more. And even if there are people that are as well off or more well off, we're all feeling this pressure. I will serve one master, and that master is the people of the 11th District of Georgia. I have no need to be on CNN or the roundtable discussions. I'm not pulling the Marjorie Taylor Greene, and now 6 months she has a talk show. Trust me. I saw she was surfing the other day, and I knew it wasn't in Georgia. So, but we need to deliver service, we need to deliver results, and we need to be transparent. And that's what I'm about. Turn the page, literally and figuratively. Let's talk a little about my platform, lowering healthcare costs, expanding access. We need to make sure that healthcare is not only affordable, because what's the use of having healthcare if you can't afford to use it? I'll tell a little story, a little family story. I have a child who recently graduated from college, who has a job, who had to have some medical stuff done. Wound up in the hospital for a couple of days and had some surgery, and he's fine. But he had a $10,000 deductible, and guess what the bill was? How does a 25-year-old handle $25,000 in medical debt like that? Pay plan? Sure. Hospital's willing to do that. But you got to carry that debt. Now, how do you move out and rent an apartment for $2,500 a month, or buy a house, or keep your car going and your car insurance, unless you're starting to look at medical debt, medical bankruptcy, right? This is ridiculous. Healthcare needs to be affordable, it needs to be usable, it needs to be accessible. We need to re-support the rural hospitals so that people are not having to drive to find help. There are counties in this state that don't have any OBGYNs, right? We're at a zero population growth in this country. Well, there's a big reason for that if you can't get the decent health care. Social Security. You know, what I learned about this, we grow up and we hear things like entitlements and Obamacare, and these are really good marketing tools that people have slapped onto these things, and they become part of our vernacular. Medicare, Social Security are not entitlements. We pay for them. Right. We pay for them every day. We gave the government our money and said, we're going to get it back from you. Well, 75 cents on the dollar is not getting it back, right? Nobody would want to invest in that 401k. So we need to strengthen Social Security. We need to take the cap off of Social Security wages. As a self-employed businessman, I'm lucky I get to pay both sides, right? Okay, that's my responsibility. This is my chosen profession. I don't have a problem with that. But we need to go beyond the $175,000 cap limit, right? Now, there's ways around that, but we'd get some more money. And in fact, it's been shown that the solvency problem would be removed if that one law passed. We also need to strengthen the long-term viability of Medicare and Medicaid and those programs. Let's talk about the cost of living, okay? This is, and housing. This is near and dear to my heart, okay? I love selling homes, and the higher the price, I love selling more expensive homes. The problem is that we don't have any churn. We don't have any movement in the housing market because the young people can't buy the homes because they can't afford them. Rates have come down. Rates are very affordable right now, okay? They're at a healthy 6%. But the cost is so high, and they don't have the money for down payments, and they don't have the money for their other costs. We've got to create programs. Now, I was a real estate agent back in 2008, 9, and 10 when the whole world came apart, okay? And those were not fun times. But Georgia, as well as the federal government, came up with first-time housing buyer programs, ways to help with down payments. Some of them were forgivable, some of them weren't. I'm not here to talk about what policy works. I'm talking about, though, that greases the wheels. That gets people off their seat. We need to have that, and we have to stop this mentality of we only bring a fire extinguisher when the fire is blazing, okay? We can plan for this. We can create things. So we need to tackle the problem with housing supply and constraints. Some of that has to do with new building, although every time they build something, they don't build it cheaply, right? Well, they may build it cheaply, but they don't charge cheap prices for them. So we need to support first-time home buyers. Because this is the number one wealth building tool Americans have, is the equity in their home. Okay? That's the American dream. Yes, we want prices to go up. You don't want to see a deflation in your home prices. That is not healthy. What we want is affordable housing options so that people can make, when I started in this industry in 2003, you could buy a $150,000 home, buy a $300,000 home, buy a $500,000 home. And there were people right behind you that came and filled in those gaps. but you can't start out at 500. Okay? We also need to talk about the government in general. I think we're starting to see, especially with the pressures that's on Congress right now, we're seeing different people on both sides of the aisle, the ones that are willing to step up and talk directly to the camera. We need transparency. We need to root out the corruption that is in our government. Self-serving means, stock market trade should be illegal. No member of Congress should be able to trade in the stock market directly. Blind trusts, right? That doesn't work for you? Find another way, get a job like the rest of us, okay? We need to put our constituents first. So these are the topics. Now, there's a broad range, Ken brought up, there's a broad range of issues and topics that a congressman is going to have to, or congresswoman, will have to deal with, whether that's foreign policy or immigration, national security, education, trade. And I'm prepared to deal with those. But the issues that are going to get this seat flipped is not what's happening overseas. It's going to be the fact that Barry Loudermilk is now in his 10th year. He's a 5-term rubber stamp Republican. He ducks in the back row. In fact, I don't know if anybody of you were scheduled to go hear him speak back in Marietta a few weeks ago. Was anybody? Well, I was. He was a no-show. I was there. I was in the parking lot. I'm looking around and I'm checking, wrong date, wrong place, wrong time. Nobody's there. I don't know if you saw on my Facebook page, but if you go, I did a little video. Guy comes up, walks up with a piece of paper in his hand. He knocks on my window and he said, "Excuse me, are you here for the Barry Loudermilk?" I'm like, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, it's been canceled." He had a piece of paper that he was going to tape on the door. Barry was in Washington to do business. Whatever. I don't know how even if it was not widely promoted, which it wasn't because I was looking for it, and I question whether that event ever was planned to take place. How do you do that? He was here. He was supposedly here for 45 days during the shutdown. Not one town hall, not one meeting. Where was he handing out food and stuff to the people on SNAP that lost their benefits? Where was he? Nowhere. That's not servant leadership. That's, I'm going to collect my paycheck till I'm 65, and then he's going to get out with his pension. Incidentally, like Marjorie will on Monday. So to win this, I'm going to kind of bring it together here. To win and flip this seat, you're going to need someone who can run a disciplined, focused, and professional campaign. Someone who can appeal to a broad range of voters on a broad range of issues. Someone who has real life experience and firsthand knowledge of the impact of the government policies that we're experiencing right now. A small business owner, cost of health insurance, health care, medical and student debt, right? Big issues that affect my household. So I'm going to ask you this. I'm going to close by making an invitation. I'm going to ask you to support my campaign and join us. If Matt, will you hand out those things? My campaign assistant, Matthew, who may look strangely like me, is going to hand out just a little takeaway. And if you want it, great. If not, just give it back to him. But I'm going to ask you to join my campaign and follow me on Facebook, Barry Wolford for Congress on Facebook. Follow me on Instagram, WolfordGA11, so you can see what I'm posting. Volunteer to canvass and host meet and greets for me, okay? This is not an inexpensive endeavor. This is going to take millions of dollars. Now, there's 2 ways to fund a campaign. Well, 3 ways. The first one I can't do because I don't have $1 million in the bank. The second one is to get it from all the PACs. And the third one is to get it from the grassroots people. So if you want to see these changes, I invite you to join us. You can go to my website, barrywolfordforcongress.com. You see how we kept that consistent? There's a little get involved. Just put your name in there, and I get an email, and we'll have your name and number, and you can just say, I'd like to do this, that, or the other thing. And talk to your neighbors. Let them know there's somebody running who understands their pain, who's one of us. I'm you. I'm your neighbor. And see if they're interested in joining, donating, volunteering. So I'll finish with this. The campaign is about working people, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, who want a servant leadership and a government that's committed to helping them, not infringing on them or furthering the gap between the haves and the have-nots. That is my message. That is my vision. I'm going to spend the next 11 months, hopefully, getting to the general. We'll have to beat some formidable opponents in the primary. But I'm going to spend this time fighting for this and moving forward with these issues. And I hope I've said something that maybe resonates with you today, and you'll be interested in following me and joining my campaign. Thank you so much.
So Ken, you want to come back up? So we'll have both candidates up here. You are both, does the audience address either one of them to answer any questions?
Thank you. Sir, who would you like to talk? Who do you? Yeah.
Both of you.
Yeah.
One of the problems in the housing market today, and it's getting worse by the day, is these equity firms that are buying up communities, turning them into rentals.
Yeah.
And I read somewhere, I don't know if the number's right, but soon, maybe in the next 5 years, it'll be over 50% of the private properties will be owned by equity firms. That sounds a little bit high, but
Yeah.
But the point is, what specific plans do you have or ideas do you have to slow
Sure.
that down, reverse it so young people can buy homes?
That's a good question, and I'll take it first, and then I'll turn it to you. So, after we came out of the 2008, 9, 10 recession, and the market started to come back, big investment companies like BlackRock, these multi-billion-dollar companies, started to look at, all they have is money. They make nothing, they do nothing, they invest money. And they were looking, where can they get a better return? In the stock market, and where's the risk? And they looked at the housing market, and they said, these houses are depressed, right? We all remember that when your taxes and even your property taxes went down at that time, or foreclosures. So they came in and swooped. There were about 8 or 10 cities that they did that in. Atlanta was one of them, and bought a ton of homes and made them into rentals or eventually resold them. So I will say this without getting too much into policy because I don't have the breadth of all the information. I can give you an example. In Toronto, Canada, the average home price in Toronto is over $750,000 Canadian. So it's about $11 here. No. It's about $750,000. And one of the reasons is because of foreign investment, particularly the Chinese. And they passed a law limiting foreign investment in the city because they were getting priced out of their own city. We can do something like that. We can say that no company or no organization can own more than a percentage of certain things. We can make sure, and one of the big issues as a realtor, when I go to show a house like that, we can't find out who owns the property. Because even if BlackRock owns it, there's a subsidiary of a subsidiary of a subsidiary, right? And it comes down to be, Maple Lane LLC, and you think it's your neighbor who's renovating the house or whatever it is. So we need transparency. That is part of the solution. The other part is maybe that if you do invest in these properties, you have to sell them within a period of time. We must churn the inventory. So you're forced to put them back on the market. Then the market takes over, whatever the market prices are, whatever the market forces are. That would be part of what I would look at in terms of making sure we have limits and caps on the investment that non-owner occupied, or non-occupied owner, properties are, and having transparency on who those owners are. And we don't have that right now. Ken, I'll give you a chance.
I mean, similar along the lines to what Barry was saying is we have to put in place restrictions. One of the analogies I like to make with politics would be to sports or to board games. Sports or board games. Meaning that there's a set of rules that someone has to operate in. In sports, these rules are ever changing. Years ago, Tom Brady took a hit low, tore his ACL, missed the entire season, Patriots missed the playoffs. Very next year, NFL came out with a new rule. You can't go head first into a quarterback below their waist. Did it change the game? Did it make the NFL less popular? Did they lose money? No. It is the most profitable nonprofit in the United States. Figure that out. The NFL is a nonprofit. But when you make rules to change something, it doesn't devalue it. It doesn't hurt it. So if we can get legislation passed to limit private equity investment into residential housing, even if we start by just saying, hey, private equity firms can't own single-family houses. apartment complexes are going to be owned by corporations, and we can start working on that. But if Barry sells me another house, which now I know of someone on the inside, so next time I need to move, I can take my first house and rent it out. I'm not a private equity firm, I'm not doing that, and then I can bring someone an alternative to rising rent costs from other corporations. So we need to start bringing that power back to the people. And the only way you're going to do it is by changing legislation. Is it going to ruin BlackRock? No. They're going to have money, but they're going to tell you that we can't do it. They're going to tell you it's a bad idea because they don't care about the people, they care about the profit. So it's finding like-minded individuals. And if, Barry was CD11, now I'm CD12, you got two people right there. You got a sponsor and a co-sponsor for a bill that's going to limit private equity investment and that's how you start. We have to find like-minded people. The only people we're worried about convincing right now is the people of CD11 so we can get in there. But we need to find people. We need to find people that will co-sponsor bills like that. We need to find the majority of people that'll support that on the floor. I'd be willing to bet Barry would probably be faster at this than me. He'd write up a perfect piece of legislation for that, and I'm willing to bet AOC would co-sponsor it as soon as he got on the floor.
Maybe Sean Harris over in 14 when he wins there.
Yes. There are people that'll do this, but that's just the issue. We need to get more people in to do this. We need to get more people in that are struggling to pay a mortgage payment, that look around and see rapid development, new houses are $400,000. That's less than what I paid for my house. I can't buy a new house right now. I'm in that house. But it's going to take everyone and not just CD11 to solve that problem, but we can put it forward. We can publicize it. If Barry doesn't want to get in front of CNN and talk about it, I'll do it. All right, we have another question.
Yeah, I saw Faye raise her hand first.
The reason this goes along with it, when I was doing the census, I went to they were just houses with multi-bedrooms, and each bedroom was someone's apartment.
Yeah.
That sounds like it's more city control than state, but it's still, that's how some people are getting around it. And I had people angry that, how dare you ask how many people live in this house? And it turned out that if you had 5 bedrooms, you had 5 families, and then you had the public areas.
I can say this about that, and we've seen the growth of Airbnb and VRBO and these types of places. That is not a federal. In my opinion, that's a state, county, and you do have zoning issues, and people can't do that. Okay, unless they're in the right places. HOAs will control that to a certain degree, but it's all about enforcement. The whole game, the whole reason you have corruption, it's not that the systems are bad, it's the enforcement is lacking. The oversight. When you get rid of all the inspector generals, right, who watches the watchers, right? We've seen this before. And so to answer your question, when you did the census, there are people, whether they're corporations or individuals, who have bought homes and done that. And again, I say if the zoning and the rules locally allow it, so be it. But most of the time they don't, and they're trying to get away with something until they get caught. And that's a good way to catch them. So I wouldn't necessarily stand up here and say we need to take a federal stance. I think that's a state issue at a minimum level, and really a county and a town issue. So
It is a local issue, and there have been communities that have taken action against stuff like Airbnb, mostly propped up by the hotel industry because they're the ones who suffer with Airbnb. Also, civil rights are infringed upon by Airbnb. Airbnb can choose who they want to let rent, who they don't want to let rent. Hotels can't. Hotels have to take everyone that creates a reservation. So when these governments act against an entity like Airbnb, they're trying to protect the public. But it is that, and I've been in that situation. I rented a room. I was in England in 2010. I had a teaching job, and I rented a room from a lady. She had 3 bedrooms upstairs. All 3 of them were rented out. And she used that to pay for a mortgage. England was also, at the time, not a cheap place to live. But we do need that top to bottom strategy of going back and forth between federal, state, and local. They need to work in concert. They need to come up and say, hey, I need you to do this, and then I can say, okay, I do that, you do this, and then we can address these problems as they arise. But that is one of the contributing factors to the increase in housing costs.
My question is primarily according to the dismantling of the Department of Education regarding the special ed community. Now, in the affluent areas, they're going to be able to afford the special ed teachers. But the less affluent areas, how is that going to affect the students?
You want to take this first, since this is more your background? I'll talk about it.
All right, so right now we are still operating under IDEA, Individuals with Disability Education Act, and it is still going to be a federal requirement, so all communities will still have to provide these services. There is an affordability issue, but even with the Department of Education, we had that issue. If you were to go down to East Cobb, Marietta, where I rented a house for a year when we first came up from Florida, I was right around the corner from Lassiter High School. They can afford to do anything they want because of the property taxes. So there is that injustice in schools right now where the schools that live amongst higher property values get more. The counties that have the higher property values get more. And that's not fair to the majority of students. So what we need to do is we need to, since Reagan, the first president to make cuts to federal spending for education, we have dropped to education spending of 0.03% of GDP. Before Nixon, it was 0.05. The first thing we need to do is bump that back up. The country needs to invest in education. The country needs to invest in its future citizens and its future taxpayers. Because the more they're able to make, the more the government's able to do for you.
I'll just say this, and I don't know if it's a solution or not, all right, because I haven't looked into this. But when my kids, I'm in Pope High School District, which is across the street basically from Lassiter. I'm in East Cobb. And my kids went through the public school system. We were in one of the older, less affluent elementary schools at the time. And when my children went into elementary school, I got involved and I went on the foundation and I became the foundation president. And where we were lacking in funding, particularly at that time, we wanted a computer lab and a computer lab teacher and some other things to fix the physical plant. It was up to us to raise the money as the community. Now, is that fair? You're paying taxes. Not everybody gets everything equally. This is a reality of life. We need to find ways, though, to make sure, from a federal standpoint, that we can support these things. And I think the role of the Department of Education needs to be less about curriculum and directing policy, which I think needs to be a community level driven, and more about implementation of funding and grants and fairness in that respect. And so I will just answer that question by saying that by taking these grants and giving them to whether it's the state and the state giving it to the county or some direction, the money needs to be there. That's number one. I agree with Ken 100%. And then it needs to be allocated and at the local level, right? That's all I can say at this point. Well, yeah, I mean, South Georgia, North Georgia. Look, Fulton County, South Fulton, North Fulton, right? Lassiter, Pope, Sprayberry, Kell. I mean, pick it, look. Yeah. And as a realtor, I can tell you, there are people that live in one district over the other because the housing price is $150,000 difference, and you're on the other side of the street. I don't know that we can undo districting and all. That's a ball of string that I'm not going to touch right now. But what we need to be able to do is make sure that children have safe education, that nobody comes to school hungry, that they have the right to learn and find their own way, right? And that's what education is about, and bringing a sense of community to the community. So that's what I'll say. Okay.
So
This
what
gentleman.
what is the proposals you guys have to address Social Security funding that's going to go down in the few years? Because that's not just for us, but also the future generations.
So I'll just start real quick. I don't have a written out proposal here. It's a little above my pay grade at 8 weeks into the campaign. But the first thing is we've got to take the cap off the Social Security wage limit. There's just no question about it. Okay? You know, I will say this, understand this, the super rich and the super powerful know how to work this. Steve Jobs, when he went back to Apple, do you know what his salary was? $1. Now, he didn't do that, I can't say why he did that. I think he did that more for other reasons. Now, what was his compensation? Millions and hundreds of millions of dollars. But his payroll, his W-2 said $1. So, you know, you can bypass this system all you want. Now, that's not what I'm worried about. You know, right now the Social Security income tax cap is right around $175,000, $176,000. So the people between 176 and $1 million, right? You know, everybody pays to that point. We need to take that cap off because as you make more money, right, it's a percentage. Even though the number is greater, the impact to you is less. And frankly, it's, you know, you're going to have to take one for the team, right? Even if you're making $1 million a year as a salary and you don't even need Social Security or rely on it, you want to play in this league, using your sports metaphor, you know, that's the price of playing. And so my policy off the start would be to take the limit off of that cap. It would be a few other things. Let me let Ken talk about that, and then Julie, whatever you think.
No, very quickly, same thing. And I don't know, my information is probably wrong. I thought the cap was 250. But FICA was instituted where it was supposed to be just for Social Security. What the Republicans have been doing since the 80s is taking money out of that fund and using it for other things. So we need to make sure that we have a hard wall to protect that fund, as well as removing the cap.
Yes, first of all, thank you both for running. I just wondered what you might do in terms of campaign finance and how the laws governing that should be revised, or how best the Citizens United ruling be tackled and overturned. Just wondering what your strategies would be going in.
I mean, first is we do need to overturn Citizens United. That's going to take an act of Congress. We need to get corporate money out. We need to follow the lead of other countries. I believe it was, now I'm confused whether it was Netherlands, France, or New Zealand that put a limit to $50,000 is the max single donation from a single person. And it was purposely targeted Elon Musk so that he couldn't try and buy another election. So we need to put caps on it. Do I think there can be a way to publicly finance elections? In a dream world, yes, but I haven't found that way yet. And that's something that, as an individual, I would need to consult with other people. That's a little beyond my depth. So we need to start with a cap. I would also love to shorten the campaign durations. Countries like England, you can't start campaigning until a month before the election. I don't need to see a year and a half of rhino commercials every time I turn on the TV. I'm not voting for these people anyways. And yes, I still watch live TV and I watch commercials. I don't want to sit there and stream everything. I want to watch real TV. We need to limit the amount of campaigning that's allowed. We need to limit the amount of donations someone can receive. We need to overturn Citizens United.
I agree about the Citizens United. It's a terrible, terrible thing that the Supreme Court did. It's ridiculous, and if we're going to treat corporations as people, then I want to start seeing what their taxes are paying into their. I want to see their W-2s if they're going to be people. But that being said, I agree also that countries like England. The reason that the campaign cycle has grown to this is because we have to raise money. I would love to sit here and say, let's talk, let's talk, let's talk, okay? But that's not 2026 today, okay? And that's why I'm saying to you, we can talk about policy, we can talk about what we want to do, okay? But if there isn't enough money to get the message out, if there isn't enough money to do marketing, if there isn't enough money, then the message dies, right? I mean, it's great that all of you showed up today, and I love it, and I hope each of you talk to 5 people and this message gets multiplied by 5. But there's 500,000 voters in this district, folks. And even if Ken and I don't sleep, okay, and we meet 1,000 or 2,000 people, we got 498,000 other, all right, let's take half of them. Half of them are Republicans. We got to meet 248,000 other people. We're not going to be able to do that by shaking hands and knocking doors. So I agree that we need to find solutions to this, and I would love to see, frankly, I once said, no candidate should be able to spend more than the lowest amount a candidate can spend in the case. So if there was a candidate that came in and said, I have $35,000 budget, then everybody spends $35,000 max. You run it at the lowest level. So everybody's got to compete at the same level. Is that real? I don't know. I came up with it one day, you know. Can we pass it? I don't know. But we can talk about it. We can make it an issue, right? And we can say that this money that's going from PACs to special interests, these donations that are coming in. You know, right now the federal limit for donations to our campaigns is $3,500 per election cycle, which simply means between now and the primary, you can donate up to $3,500. And after the primary, you can donate another $3,500 between the primary and the general. I don't know if that also counts if there is a runoff, but the point is, we're running out of time. We can talk more. Julie?
Thanks. Just real quick, thank you so much for these questions. There's several of you that still have questions. I'm hopeful that the 2 of them will be able to stay afterwards and that you can approach them and
Here as long as you guys want me.
yeah, and chat with them afterwards. We're sorry we have to cut it off, but we have a time frame. We have to be out of this room by a certain time. So thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Here's
Thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you.
I have 2. So our next candidate is Scott Sanders, who is running for HD 23. Again, he can talk for 20 minutes, and then we will have 10 minutes for questions for him.
Hey, everybody. I hope I can talk for 20 minutes, too. Is this good volume? All right. I'm 3 days out from the runoff, so I don't really feel a whole need to talk about my platform, my policies, and all of that. We're either going to be in or we're out on Tuesday. If you have any questions about me, my platform, where I came from, I'll be glad to talk to you, but I wanted to use this opportunity, just like I've been using this campaign, to talk about bigger things. Like Ken and Barry said, this election is important for a reason. We're not in a good place right now. 2025 has been a horrible year. I'm going to say it really blunt. It's grim. It's dark. I woke up this morning to terrible news we talked about again. We're bombing another country and kidnapping a president. And yes, there's institutional things we can do on a one-off, the authorization for use of military force. We were on the same page this morning. I mean, there's a lot of things we can do to stop one person. But we have a system of checks and balances that isn't there right now. We need to fix the whole system, not just an individual law or an individual issue. I've heard amazing proposals. I'm 100% in. You know, Congress people shouldn't trade stocks. We need to block authorization for military force. There's a lot of things like that. We should have term limits. We should have campaign finance laws. But we need to fix the bigger system. And we need to find people that will speak out and stand up and help fix the larger system. And that's what's really important. So I put some notes together, and I hope you'll bear with me. I'm not going to try and be depressing. I'm going to try and be optimistic, because I really am optimistic, and why we're important, why my race is important, why their race is important. Because we are in a grim place. We're fighting against a cult, a personality right now that nobody is willing to stop or stand up to or say no to. And it's insane. It's to me, just, you're either in the cult or it's insane. That's really where it is. I see you guys nodding your heads. I mean, we're sitting here watching. How can you believe this? How can you listen to this? There were quotes this morning from Congress people that were standing up against the use of force in Venezuela. 3 hours later, they're saying, oh, no, it's authorized. It's fine. He can do what he wants. And my wife didn't even know about this. I told her I was done with my speech and my notes, and I was going to head out to, give the talk. I was like, oh, by the way, we attacked Venezuela this morning. She goes, we did what? What? She thought I was making this story up. And then she took a quick shower and was like getting ready, looking at her phone, and she goes, he's giving a speech at 11 o'clock today from Mar-a-Lago. We bombed another country, and the president wasn't even in the White House, and nobody thinks that's fine. Oh, part of the country thinks that's fine. Unfortunately, that part of the country is in control right now. It's terrible. I hate it. I hope all of you hate it too, and that's why you're here, and that's why this is important. The only thing we can do is speak up. The only thing we can do is start with the local races, start with the state races, go to the national and federal races, and actually try and take some control back. Because if you don't vote, you're saying the status quo is okay. You're not even necessarily you're saying the other side's right. You're just saying the status quo is okay. So I think it's 7 weeks now. I wish I had been able to go to the boot camp, but all this was a whim because somebody had to do it. Nobody was running, so I decided to, and I've learned a lot in the last 7, 8 weeks. But it had to be done. And talking to the voters, canvassing, I met a bunch of great people here who've been working their tail ends off on behalf of me, but not just on behalf of me, but on behalf of what we believe in. It's been amazing, because I've had voters answer the door, tears. I've had moms whose daughter is autistic give me a hug because I'm disabled. I got special education services in high school and middle school, and that's why I'm here today. Who's like happy to hear that someone is talking about trying to rebuild those services or trying to take care of the people, because nobody seems to be doing it right now, and it's not the national discussion. It's just a travesty after a travesty after a travesty. So what we're here and why you're here is we're bringing hope, right? We're bringing that light. Now that we've brought it, what are we going to do with it? So that's why I took some notes that I wanted to have a bigger conversation because I have a forum, and I hope you'll listen. I'd be glad to talk about this because I think about it a lot. I like to fix problems. I like to solve issues. I like to make things better for everybody. My day job and my family drives my wife crazy because every time she comes to me and tells me she has a problem, I start immediately trying to think about how to help her and fix it. And sometimes, if you're married, you know, you just need to listen and say, I'm really sorry, what can I do to help you, versus, you know what you need to do. So, unfortunately, I have ideas I'd like to discuss. And I am just jumping all over this thing. One thing that is a systematic problem with power right now is there are different agendas between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. And the Republican Party's agenda is primarily to restrict the rights of those they don't like, to take away funding from those they don't like, to cut taxes, and to put in judges and appoint people. All of those things are easy to do under the current system. The Democratic agenda, like passing the American Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, that was the biggest lift in my lifetime that the federal government has done. And they managed to do it despite the Senate filibuster, which was mind-boggling to me. But that's one of the biggest issues we have. Every positive agenda item we have will get stopped in the Senate as long as the filibuster is there. Many, many years I believed in it. I thought it served its purpose, but I've seen time and time and time and time again, every positive step, every positive agenda item that has been put forth and usually passed in the House gets to the Senate and gets stopped by the filibuster. And then I looked into the case for the filibuster, and I realized how often it's used and why it's used. It intrinsically hurts the Democratic agenda. And it's unfortunate. It's a historic legacy, and I was all on board with keeping it for the longest time because I believed it served true purpose, and one of those things where it's been there, let's leave it alone. It doesn't serve a purpose anymore. It hurts the people, and it hurts our party. And if the other side isn't paying attention to it, what does it do except hold us back? And it's the number one thing that's going to hold us back from making the changes we need to make sure there's never a cult administration in place again that doesn't obey the laws. Because other things we need to do and change that require the Senate filibuster to be abolished. It's an unpopular position with some people, and I fully admit that. It was an unpopular position with me. But I've come around on it, and I'd be glad to have conversations in great detail with anybody about it, because it's something that I've become very passionate about, because I think it really, really, really hurts the people of America and the democratic process. Oh.
Obamacare was passed with 60 votes in the Senate because they had the filibuster, but the Democrats had 60 senators for 7 months until Ted Kennedy died.
Yep. And when are we going to have that again with gerrymandering and districting and removing voters' rights and everything else? Gerrymandering does not affect the Senate, but it affects voting patterns that will eventually impact the Senate. If you don't think you can win, you're not going to show up. Cherokee County is a great example of that. There are a lot of Democrats in Cherokee County that don't show up because it's a Republican county, right? What's the point? It's hopeless. The race we're having right now, we're finally getting more Democrats out. Deborah Shigley got more Democrats out in this county than have been out here in years. That actually changes the state voting pattern. So I agree, gerrymandering doesn't affect the Senate directly, but indirectly it definitely does when you see the ballot that you're voting for. Not as much, but I think there is an impact there. So this is why we're important. Because what we have to do is we have to change those voting patterns. Actually, a great segue, thank you. We have to change those voting patterns, right? We have to represent the people. We have to be visible. We have to give people a voice. You start locally, you run state, and then you run national. This is how you do it. You have to build that momentum, right? The whole joke was you have to run for city dog catcher to like start working your way up. That's the case. That's what we're doing. Nate built a great organization. I see him hiding out there. But he built a great organization. What he said was, we need to have a candidate for every single race. I'm the candidate race right now that is so against the odds that there's no coverage. People have written it off a long time ago. But I'm still trying. And God knows I thank all of you that have been out there knocking on doors nonstop. It's been amazing. I'm going to go out after this. I'm going to go out on Monday, and I'm going to be knocking on doors too because, again, we have to do this for a purpose. And that purpose is to push for change. But we have to push for change that makes sense. And we have to push for change that will actually have change and have an impact versus, saying we want this or this one item or this one issue. I agree we need to block the authorization for use of military force, but I think we need to fix the whole structure that allows the current administration to do what they want to do and dismantle cabinets and reappropriate money and hold people hostage and dump people off the streets and give ICE a bigger budget than the U.S. Marine Corps. I mean, we need to put a structure in place that prevents the insanity that no one ever thought was actually going to happen. Right. So that is why we are important. What needs to be done in 2026? I just said it. We got to run for everything, run hard, win, win, win. The bright light of hope right now is if you look at the races that happened in 25, and hopefully the ones that are coming up in 26, the Democratic Party is overperforming historically. I don't call it overperforming. I think people are finally waking up. It's not overperformance when people don't like the current administration and what they're doing. You are reflecting the will of the people. You're performing and reflecting the will of the people, not overperforming some arbitrary balance, etc. It's the will of the people. That's why we need to run in every single race. That's why we need to push hard. That's why we need to say we need to stand up. That's why we need to be up here and do this. That's why I stood up and did it. Someone needed to speak up. And thank you to all of you for helping me speak up and giving me this platform, and giving us a platform to keep, getting in the news cycle and driving the Republicans in Cherokee County crazy. I've seen the flyers and I've seen some of the mailers and all the stuff they put up. My wife is very upset with them. My mom is very upset with them, asking how they could print lies about me. And I'm like, I was upset for a day, and then I finally got over it. I didn't like the picture they put of me in my car next to the other guy in a suit, but whatever. It's how they want to play the game. But we're playing a good game, and we're actually making a difference by doing this. It's hard. It is so hard. You guys, I hope you're ready for what you're in for. 8 weeks has nearly knocked me out, and Julie was laughing the other day. I sent her a picture after I went canvassing. I literally just fell flat on the floor on my back and had my eyes closed, like I am so tired and done right now. My wife took a picture, I didn't even know it, and sent it to the whole family, like, look what he's doing to himself. But we have to, whatever we can do, to whatever level you can do. That's why I'm here right now. That's why I've been doing this for the last 8 weeks. That's why I'm going to be out this weekend. If anybody wants to join me, I'm going to be driving out, knocking on more doors. I've got flyers in my trunk and signs I've been putting up. If you've noticed, there's slowly being more and more signs around here on Cherokee Highway and East Cherokee or Cumming Highway. I'm putting them out as I drive around when I get a chance. Someone's got to do it, right? So the big picture stuff, I know I'm running out of time, so I just want to say, I've talked about ending the Senate filibuster as like the gateway. It's got to be something that's considered and something that's enacted because there's some other really important steps we need to put in place. And this isn't about tilting the playing field in favor of Democrats or in favor of Republicans. It's about resetting the playing field, changing the rules of the board game so that it's a fair board game. But you have to do it all at once. You can't change one rule and then see what happens, or change one rule for one state and see what happens. You've got to change it for the whole game, not just one area of the board. Sports analogy is great, by the way. I like that. Thank you. What we need to do is we need to implement some new national laws. And those national laws need to take care of things. The first one is we've got to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. We need to put back in place the voter protections. We've all talked about it. We all know it needs to be done. It's passed in the House multiple times and gets killed in the Senate because of the filibuster. But at the end of the day, can you have an honest conversation with someone who says they want to make voting unfair? I mean, the argument on the other side is that, there's fraud and there's illegal voting and there's all this stuff. It's like, great, let everybody vote and then throw out the fraudulent ones. Instead of saying only 50% of the people can vote because maybe there might be a few bad ones. Like, how can you have that argument honestly? So that's one of the things we need to do. The other big one is Supreme Court reform. I mean, right now we know the court is completely skewed, letting the president do whatever he wants, right? They've finally started stopping a few of those initiatives with the National Guard Acts, et cetera. And I don't want to just pack the Supreme Court. I've heard some great propositions. I don't know if any of you listened to, there's a lawyer named George Conway. He actually has come up with what I consider one of the best propositions I've heard, which is create a larger panel of Supreme Court justices. Every president gets to appoint 2 justices each term. That's it, no more, no less. Retire, doesn't matter. 2 justices a term. Large panel, randomly assigned to cases, just like the appeals court we have in place today, and they can go to senior status if they want. But that creates a larger panel of judges that are appointed by whichever administration's in charge, and it makes a much more fair and theoretically impartial system, right? That is, I think, a fair argument. Now, we can tune it, you can make other things, you can say 1 per term, 4 per term, 1 per year, whatever. But we need to have those discussions about fixing the Supreme Court. Because right now, basically you just retire when your party's in power and you just keep putting the same people back in the court, right? And saying you're gonna pack the court, that's not really fair either. I mean, we need to represent the people, not just the people we like. So we can't put 4 more justices on there to try and balance it out. Let's put a better system in place. And again, the only way to do that is gonna go back to the Senate filibuster. We're not gonna get 60 senators in the House anytime soon. It's just a stacked map, it's hard. Said the Voting Rights Act. The last thing I had on here is gerrymandering. Obviously, gerrymandering is an issue. There's a lot of states that, just recently started in Texas, right? In the mid-census, they decided to redistrict to try and get 5 more seats in the House. Oh, you guys know this. It's been in the news. I don't have to go into all the long details for and against gerrymandering. I don't really think there's a whole lot for unless you want to stay in power. But again, it's back to the board game. You got to change the rules on the entire board at once, not just one piece of it. Let's put some federal laws back in place, like the Voter Rights Advancement Act, that will prevent extreme gerrymandering. I mean, there's always going to be tilts in districts, but extreme gerrymandering is a problem. And we can't just fix it in one state. And unfortunately, if you look at the numbers, most of the Democratic states have the impartial commissions that they put in place to prevent extreme gerrymandering, and the red states don't. That's already not fair, right? So those are some of the bigger things that I would really like, we need to push our future elected representatives to discuss and take a stand on, because I think that's the only way we're going to fix our country and start putting it back together. There's a lot of other stuff I'll be glad to talk about. I spend way too much time thinking about this, but I mean, that was the crux of what I want to talk to you all about today, beyond just thanking everybody for being part of the process. And it's an amazing, glorious process when it works. It's like a child that doesn't listen when it doesn't work the way it's supposed to. You still love them anyway, but you want to try and straighten them out. I think that's where we're at right now. I just want to make it better for everybody, and thank you all for helping me to do that. And I'm going to be out there this weekend if anybody wants to join me and help me canvassing. And then finally, Tuesday night is our watch party. There's been some links on it on the website. Anybody that wants to join us is welcome. I think there is a capacity limit, but it's a pretty big one. It should be fun. So I appreciate you all. Thank you very much for the time, and thank you guys for running. I respect you. Good luck.
And we had about 3 different people who said they were voting for you because they spoke to you, because you went out and knocked on their door. So thank you so much for doing that. It makes a big difference.
Thank you. I'm not kidding. I get goosebumps every time I hear a story like that. It's like a reaction. I was at the store, the Hallmark store the other day, and the cashier leaned forward and goes, I hope you win the election. Because it's like very, very different crowd there. And I was like, oh man, thank you. Yes?
So Scott, what are the specific local issues you're trying to address for
Yep,
your district?
fair enough. Specific local issues. So I have them on the website. I brought them up before, so I'll hit the highlights, right? The first one is special education services. Like, this is a state position, so it's not like Cherokee County specific, right? So as a state position, I really want to fix and find some funding for special education services across the country, or I'm sorry, across the state. I think we're going to have a huge problem with teachers and resources. We already do, but it's only going to get a lot worse, right? The funding is there, but they've cut the staff at the Department of Education that actually allocates the funding and processes the funding and then tracks it it's actually used properly. That staff's not there. The money's going to sit there until apportionment happens and it's gone. So that's one of the things I really want to fix, is find some way within the state legislature to create specific special education services and resources for the state of Georgia. I was the recipient of it in California. I know it can be done, so there's got to be a way to do it here. Next is just affordability in general, healthcare subsidies. Again, we've got to find a way to support that. My opponent says that I've said I'm going to raise taxes on everybody, everywhere, and every place, and raise property taxes. No, I've never said that. I don't intend to say that. I haven't brought a California agenda with me, but I personally feel that upper income people could probably pay a little bit more taxes to provide more services for lower income people. Beyond that, let's find a balance. But I wanted to do that to provide services for people, not just to raise taxes for the purposes of raising taxes, and definitely not against people who are already hurting. Ken was next. Yeah.
As a teacher in the state of Georgia, there is a law that prohibits any organization from negotiating collectively on behalf of the teachers. Yes. Yes. So there are no teachers associations or unions that operate, because we have the right to work state, but no one can negotiate on behalf of the teachers for what the teachers need in terms of salary or responsibilities. Would you address that?
Absolutely. I will be completely honest and candid and say I was not aware that there was a law against it. I worked with I'm endorsed by the Georgia Association of Educators. I spoke to the teachers that were part of the local Cherokee County leadership for it, and it was a great conversation, and they ended up endorsing me and supporting me. My wife is a teacher, and she's always contributed to the teachers union. I was not aware that it could not, advocate on behalf of the teachers, and I'd say, what is that union doing then? And let's fix that. Absolutely. Yes. Oh, sorry, I read lips. Thank you.
Thanks for running. I'm curious, in your canvassing, have you encountered Republican voters, typical Republican voters or conservative voters, where your argument was effective, that persuaded them to go your way? Is there some emerging argument?
Easy answer to that question is,
yeah.
the easy answer to that question is no, and for a very specific reason. There are approximately 3,500 to 4,000 known Democratic voters within Cherokee County. We can only talk to so many. So last year, it really was last year, 2025, right? 3 short weeks ago, you all knocked on about 2,000 doors that were known likely Democratic voters to try and get them out to the polls. There were some that were Republicans that handed the material back or closed the door in our face. There wasn't really a conversation. But when it has come up, is most of the time the Democratic voters either aren't aware there's an election or just aren't paying attention because they've never been pulled in before. So if nothing else, we have greatly increased the awareness within Cherokee County of just the option and viability of a Democratic candidate. That's on the canvassing side. I'll just say really quick, on a personal side, some of my really good friends are actually very involved with Republican politics. One of them is quitting her day job to go work on Republican campaign for her brother this year. They actually had conversations with me, right? And we had common sense agreements. It wasn't, a cult this. We were able to have those conversations. So I think there's an opportunity, and I know of at least 2 that I personally have swayed over to vote Democratic. Now, they're my parents, but at least I got some. That's 2 more than we had, folks. Come on. No, they sent me a picture. They sent me a picture on Friday of them with their, voted stickers and 7 tequilas up in Riverstone, because they always go vote and then they go get Mexican food. It's hilarious. Any other questions I can answer? Yeah.
I just want to make a comment. I've lived in Cherokee for over 40 years, and for the longest time, you could go vote, but there weren't any Democrats on the ticket. I mean, it was, you either voted Republican or you just skipped it.
Yeah.
You know, so it is nice to know that at least we're gonna get some Democrats on the ticket, because it was really an exercise of futility.
Yeah, that's the story. That is the story I hear from voters in canvass all the time. The fact that they found out there's an option. Give me one second. We only get 1 second. On my street, I'm a hardcore Democrat. I never put a sign up. I never did anything because I didn't want to be seen in the neighborhood and lose friends or whatever, right? Everyone thinks they're that one Democrat on the street. Someone moved into our street and put up a Harris Wall sign. I'm like, oh man, that's crazy. But I went and talked to him. And then I found out my neighbor at the end of the cul-de-sac is also a hardcore Democrat. And so all of a sudden now, I got three signs on my street, 4 because I have 2 on my property just because I can. But then my neighbor Fincher has 1. So I'm like, hey, at least I win my street if we vote, right? But I mean, that's really what it is. Like, you start finding people, and we canvass, we'll knock on a door, and they'll be like, good luck in this neighborhood. There's no other Democrats around here. And then we hit like 3 houses down, and then we hit like 4 houses down, 3 in a row, and they see us. I see some of them watching us, right, after we walk away. And it's like, there are other Democrats in this neighborhood. And so that's what we're doing, is we're building that awareness, and I think it's just going to keep growing. I think that's one of the reasons the Republicans are sending out these flyers with just like straight up lies and made up pictures and pissing off my mom, because we're actually making a difference here. I'm sorry, go ahead.
You said you don't have any recollection even of any Democrats in this area, but you're just a youngster. So I've been here for 3/4 of a century, and I remember when everybody was a Democrat. Everybody was a Democrat. But I'm saddened by all of this, because we are essentially moving chairs around on the deck of that Titanic. We're going down on all fronts, and we're afraid to see what works. But let me tell you personally what works. I've got 7 kids. One of my kids lives in Canada. One of my kids lives in the Netherlands. One of my kids lives in Italy. All 3 of those places have free health care, free education, half the cost of living that we have here. They have less expenses. Why? Because they don't spend $1 trillion a year blowing up sand in the Middle East. So, but I just want to say that 2 of my remaining 7 now have their European citizenship. Imagine, we came here right after the war, the Revolutionary War, and we've been here ever since. And now, 5 of my 7 kids are not going to be living here anymore because the ship is sinking. And trying to figure out how to spend more money on schools, we already spend twice on schools per capita what Finland's just a little country. It's one of 26 countries in the EU that's bigger than the U.S. And we spend twice what they spend, and they're number 1 in the world. Well, how can they do that? We spend twice what France spends on health care, and they're number 1 in the world. How do we do that?
We got 4 minutes left. We have to vacate the room. 1 minute before we have to vacate the room. So, if anybody has any questions for me, I'm sticking around too. If you love to, I'm having a blast in meeting everybody. As much as I fake complain about how hard this campaign is, it's been the most exhilarating and inspiring and mind-blowing period of my life, short of being a parent for the first time, second time, third time, fourth time. But besides that, this is up there. And thank you all for coming out. I appreciate it.
So I am told that we have 3 candidates here. Would you stand up? But no, that have not spoken. Okay. So one of you have, so I've asked that the room, we can stay a little bit longer. So if you want to say something, just be brief. Okay. I'm sorry.
No Q&A.
Yeah, or if you'd rather just announce who you are and take questions.
Yeah, I can do that. Yep, my name is Richard Wright. Before I get into my speech or my little quick introduction, everyone repeat after me. Say, I am important. My views matter. Everyone in here is important. And if no one has told you that today, let me be the first person to tell you. So my name is Richard Wright, and I am running for Lieutenant Governor of Georgia. I'm a CPA by day, candidate by day and night now. And so I like to kind of answer questions. So if anyone has a question for me, please ask.
Why are you running? What issues are you going to address?
Great question. Great question. I'm running on affordability, civility, and then visionary leadership. And I think that we're going to have to address all encompassing. And so the affordability crisis is what it is, right? Life is too expensive now, and how are we going to fix it? And I think there needs to be an intellectual endeavor in there. And the gentleman right here, I forget your name, sir, he asked about private equity, right? Well, what is private equity? It's a fundamental question, isn't it, right? If you don't know what it is, how can you fight it? And so private equity is when two successful people get together, start a partnership, and then they go out and beg people for money. That's private equity, one-on-one. And then they use that money to buy stuff. And the stuff that they're choosing to buy right now is real estate, right? So that's how they come in, because think about it, if we were developers and we spent $2 million on an apartment, well, let's just say 10 townhomes, $2 million, right? If someone came in to you after the construction is done and say, here goes a $2 million check, right? Or let's say $3 million check, right? You can either try to sell all 10 homes separately, or you can let the private equity company buy all 10. You're going to take your $3 million and you're going, right? So now the private equity owns it now, right? And so what do you think is going to happen as soon as the tax laws favor private equity owners, the general partners? They're going to sell to a larger private equity, right? So now larger private equity comes in, buys it for $5 million, right? These 10 homes. Now these 10 homes are worth $500,000 apiece, and that's how things become unaffordable, right? So someone on the state level has to first understand what private equity is, then to be able to walk in and say, hey, I can't stop capitalism. I don't want to lie to anybody in this room. I can't stop capitalism. But if I understand the fundamentals of taxation when it comes to private equity, I got a leg to stand on. And now I can offer WIFMs. What's in it for me? That's what a WIFM is. What's in it for me? And what's in it for the private equity company, right? To sell early, right? That's what the discussion has to be. And unfortunately, currently, even as the lieutenant governor, there are 33 Republican senators, right? So I don't want to lie to anybody in this room that said that I'm going to go in there and just change things unilaterally, because that's not going to happen, right? I need 29 votes. And for certain things, I have them. For certain things, I don't. But for this right here, I believe that I can go and paint a picture, paint a message to the voter that would then put pressure on the elected Republicans to say, listen, these houses need to be sold quicker, right? If I have to give you a tax break to do it, that's what I got to do, right? So that they can remain affordable. That's the end goal, is that I want houses that are affordable for our young people. Any other questions? No? Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Next person wants to come up. Can you say what you're running for?
Sure, yeah. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Pleasure to meet you. My name is DeMont Walker, and I am running for House District 46 here in Georgia, which is South Cherokee and a little bit of North Cobb, so right on the Cherokee-Cobb border there, a little bit further south of here. And so we've heard a lot of great speeches today. I don't want to take up a ton of time. I want to have a lot of opportunities to talk to people. One of the things I'm looking forward to doing throughout the course of this campaign is something I want to coin is cultivate to legislate. I want to cultivate relationships with every person in this room, every voter in my district. I want to talk to you. I want to hear from you, because it's about serving leadership. What am I looking to do? Three main things, real simple. Affordability. We've heard that said so many times already today. There's an affordability crisis here in Georgia. It needs to be addressed. Spending is getting out of control in terms of raising costs. I have young children. I see the cost of milk go up seemingly every week. I see the cost of housing go up. We've talked about it multiple times here already. There are actions at the state level, levers that we can pull to help to control that. Affordable health care access. We heard a lot today about what's happening at the federal level because of the ACA. It's not dead yet, but its affordability is on life control. We have levers that we can pull at the state level that can increase access to affordable health care, to help control the costs and to help people navigate the system. Research shows when the system's hard to figure out, you just don't bother. You don't go, you miss out on opportunities to get the care that you need. That's a problem. We can address that. Lastly, education. I'm the son of an educator. My wife works in education. I'm the only person in my entire extended family who doesn't work in education. I work in the nonprofit industry. We have access and we have options at the state level that need to be addressed to help our education here in Cherokee and in Cobb. One of the big things I want to look at is the QBE. This is our quality-based education. So this is the formula that we use at the state level that determines how do we fund our schools. In Georgia, it has not been addressed since 1985. I may not look it, but I was 2 years old back then. A lot has changed since 1985 and right now. We want to talk about special education. That funding comes based off the QBE ratio. That's how we determine how much money the state of Georgia can allocate from the federal government coming in from those grants and then send it and pass it on to places like Cherokee County. We haven't updated it. We haven't accounted for what has changed in the world since 1985. A little bit about my quick story about my background. Most recently, I've worked in education advocacy. I've traveled this country working to help support equity in public schools. Colorado, Washington, Arizona, red states like Arizona. We've worked to adjust and fight to fix the QBE in those states, to raise our public school systems and give people an opportunity. Real working families, we need quality education opportunity for our children. I moved to Cherokee because I wanted my children to have access to the school system. We talked about that earlier. We need to continue to support it. That's a lever that we can pull. So, affordability, affordable health care, education. I'm DeMont Walker. I would love to speak to every one of you because I want to cultivate a relationship with every single one of you. Please go to my website, friendsofdemont.com. We're up. We have Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky, all the things. I have cards. Please come talk to me. I want to get to know you because I am here for you. This isn't about me. I'm humble. I will always remain humble and transparent. I want to help everyone in this room and your families so we can have a better tomorrow. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Michael Hettig. That's H-E-T-T-I-G, not a very common last name, so I always feel inclined to spell it out in case people want to say Google it later. My name is Michael Hettig, and I'm running for Georgia Senate District 32. That's also a little bit south of here. That is Holly Springs, Woodstock, everything west of 575, and then the northern part of Marietta, right above the square. So that whole little area, take 575, go west, you'll find Senate District 32. It's currently, I'm going to be running against the incumbent, Kay Kirkpatrick, who ran unopposed in 2024. When I saw her running unopposed, I, like what was addressed earlier, thought, what are Democrats supposed to do? Either bite the bullet and vote for Republican or just choose to not vote, and that is terribly undemocratic. No election should ever go unopposed, because if we want to have confidence in our electoral system, like we should be able to know that there are options for people to vote so that they can know that their voice will be heard. They can know that their interests will be represented, and they know that they have someone out there speaking for them. The current incumbent, I don't know if you can necessarily say that they're speaking for all of us here. If you look at some of the legislative efforts that have been pushed, it's things like banning trans girls from high school sports, because that's a top priority here, apparently. Eliminating lawsuits against pesticide companies, the tort reform, things like that. Nothing that truly, I guess I'd like to speak to everyone here and know what's important to them, but I'd like to maybe just take a little feeling thermometer. Are any of those the most important issue? So whether or not you want to call it an issue, it's really about priorities and making sure that the priorities that we're putting forward in our legislative efforts are the ones that are truly the most important thing, truly the things that need to be addressed first. The four that are the most important to me are education. I think that teachers should have the resources and respect that they deserve to give quality education to students in public schools. We need to stop siphoning public education funding and sending them over to charter schools that are being influenced. Thank you. That are being influenced by extremist agendas. Because that not only takes the cash out of our education system, but it puts it for special interests that are very exclusive and I don't think are very representative here and are influenced from people out in DC, and other interest groups like that. So education needs to be funded publicly and accessible to the public in a way that it's robust and good for building education for our children. It needs to stay in Georgia, absolutely. That's one thing. I'm going to divert from my little 4 prongs here. One thing that I do a lot of thinking about is it seems that a huge sort of talking point among a certain set are states' rights, right? They love to talk about states' rights. Where are states' rights when you're letting DC influence education here in Georgia? Where are states' rights when you have federal agents stopping people on 92 asking for their citizenship records? Apparently states' rights can be neglected and just ignored at some point when it fits a special interest, when it suits them, exactly. So I think that education should be kept in Georgia and in the interest of Georgia families, in the interest of Georgia children, and as good and public and accessible. I believe in healthcare. I believe that healthcare is a human right. I believe that women's access to reproductive care is healthcare, and healthcare is a human right. I believe that women's access to their maternal needs is healthcare, which is a human right. So to take any part of that and carve it out and make it a political issue and not a healthcare issue is nothing but cruelty, and there's no place for that in Georgia. I believe in the economy. I believe in promoting small businesses. Right in my town of Woodstock, where I live, there are small businesses struggling, and the small businesses of Woodstock are my favorite part about it. That's why I moved there. The downtown is just so fun, and you see these small businesses that are struggling. Meanwhile, we are opening a large hotel from a national chain, and we are adding another Publix while not having the infrastructure to support traffic to these places. That doesn't really seem to be in the interest of small business. And people like to say that government puts red tape between people and their business needs. Well, it doesn't need to. It can be promoting and propping up these small businesses while making sure the large corporations are paying their fair share.
Exactly.
And then the fourth thing is safety. I think that we do need to have the training for our law enforcement. I think that we should be promoting law enforcement's training and sensitivity to issues rather than just focus on over-policing versus under-policing. I think the right kind of policing would be the best thing for a community. They need to be trained in handling sensitive issues and handling people with special needs. I've seen some horrific body cam footage of people that just don't have the training to know what they're necessarily handling, and so you either, again, have that option of cruelty or having some just awful story on the news, and that doesn't need to happen with just a little bit more training and the resources provided for that. Also touching on special education, that has been spoken to a bunch of times, which I fully agree with. We need the resources there to be able to handle proper special education, and it's just all about cultivating and using government to form a community that benefits the community itself and is not just pushing agendas that play well on cable news and not just pushing agendas that play well in echo chambers on social media, but a campaign for the people that is built by the people. So that's why I'm not up here pretending I know all the answers. I'd like to, as was spoken to by DeMont, speak to the folks of the community, hear the policy needs that they would like to see addressed, hear the things that they are struggling with, and be able to address that through good, wholesome policy that benefits everyone in Georgia, not just special interest groups, not just extremist echo chambers, everyone. Because it's a human right to have a good society that we can have faith in.
Thank you all for coming. Our next meeting will be February 7th, I think, February 6th. Anyway, the first Saturday of February. It will be here. I don't yet have a speaker lined up, but we will have one. If you have any other questions or anything, if you have any speakers you'd like to have come, please let me know, and I'll be happy to reach out to them as well. All right, thank you.